There were 5 of us, girl cousins and siblings, and we were gathered in the pine forest surrounding our grandparents' mountain home where we often stayed together in the summertime during our childhood. I was the oldest, and this summer I was 9 years old. The youngest was my 3-year-old cousin. She had a bit of trouble navigating the forest terrain, and our grandmother instructed us to watch her very carefully because she was the baby and could easily fall into the creek or even be left behind. For some reason on this particular day, and I do not recall why at all, I began teasing and tormenting my youngest cousin, the baby. As we walked along the creek, I began picking up twigs and waving them at her and pushing them into her pockets and telling her that the twigs were snakes, live snakes. I remember her screaming and howling and crying, completely freaked out and frightened. I was torturing her, and I was laughing my head off as she screamed in terror. I had the other 3 kids laughing too. I was the instigator of this meanness. And looking back, it was a sort of group terrorism that I had organized. To this day, I occasionally wonder about this personal transgression of mine. And when I do think about it, I wonder what possessed me to be so blatantly mean and cruel to an innocent little girl, my cute little cousin. To be honest, this behavior didn't disturb me at all at the time. I was more concerned about my grandmother finding out about it, which I don't think she ever did. I don't recall ever thinking about this atrocious incident that summer until I was in college studying child development and learning about the effects of early traumas on a person. My early child abuse behavior came rolling back into my memory, and I began pondering and wondering if and how I'd ruined my little cousin's psyche in a way, somehow, with the cruel and frightening snake incident all those years ago. Why had I been so mean? I still don't know. I can truthfully say that no sort of bullying has ever erupted from me again after that day 60 years ago. I've never had any urges or thoughts about being cruel like that again. However, that memory of abuse does emerge sometimes. I wonder about the harm I caused anyone involved. I know it could have caused lasting harm to my sweet little cousin. I do hope God forgives me, and that I can eventually forgive myself. I am truly sorry to have harmed in any way my dear cousin. I respectfully release this guilt. I respectfully release this dark and painful memory.
Forgiveness is not a concept that I understand well. I used to think that I did, and I used to think that is why I had trouble dealing with it, and that's why I kept my distance from it. But turns out that I actually don't understand it very well at all. I have asked for forgiveness before, from small things to big things, and I think it's always been a way to ask for someone to allow me to shed myself of guilt or shame that I feel. I've asked you for forgiveness, and you did not hesitate. You said, of course, and you don't have to ask for forgiveness. And it felt great. But somehow it also felt very heavy at that, asking someone for forgiveness and then being forgiven would allow me to shed something and make me feel lighter. But it didn't. It actually replaced it with a different sense of responsibility. I don't want to say I felt more indebted, but I don't know. The weight of it felt similar. And that in turn also made me realize I've never forgiven the people that I really wish I could. Like my father. I think that I moved on from what we had. His trespasses and his mistakes, whether intentional or unintentional, I have forgiven those things, his decisions and his actions, especially now that I'm much older than he was when he was trying to raise me. But after having asked for forgiveness that I don't understand from others and having received forgiveness, I now come to realize I never forgave my father and I don't know how to. And going back to asking you for forgiveness, that was challenging because you were there. You were there when I was very, very unsure of everything, of myself, of the world, of what I was doing. So you've seen depths of me that I don't know that I allow people to see anymore because I was very bare. So you were part of a group of friends that were surrogate mothers and sisters to me. So asking you for forgiveness was challenging because I think I felt indebted to you. And now I was asking for more. Well, at least it felt like I was asking for more. And I wasn't sure if I was asking for forgiveness in its truest sense. I think my understanding of it was, again, very selfish, as it would be with me. Because I think that would allow me to shed sense of guilt and shame that I carried. And I didn't think about what it would mean for you to forgive me, even though you said there wasn't anything to forgive. If your forgiving me allows me to shed weight, I wonder what you are shedding to forgive me, or what you have to end up taking on. So, asking you for forgiveness and receiving it, even if I didn't fully understand it, has made me think more about what that act means. And I wonder if it's different for everyone. And I wonder if I don't know how to forgive, or if I just have to learn how to forgive on my own terms. So yeah, forgiveness. harder than I thought.
The strongest forgiveness memory I bring is that of my 2 adult daughters, each with their own wound from their childhood with me. It helped the situation immensely that I now have the tools with which to listen and help them feel heard. It seems the strongest parts of forgiveness are speaking of the injustice, feeling heard or understood, and the ensuing energy of release that the intention of forgiveness brings. Once each daughter opened up to me of their childhood pain inflicted by my actions, and I had the opportunity to respond that I understood how they felt. They were able to forgive me. The hardest part was then forgiving myself for not being who they needed me to be, and for not seeing at the time how I had hurt them. Remorse and regret move into self-acceptance of my imperfections, foibles, and failures as a mom. The process was assisted by my friends who have been there as I parented and reminded me of my love, successes, and strengths as well. Forgiveness continues as I hold space for myself to have been both the good mom and the bad mom. This duality is the primordial experience of humanity, yet in its microcosm offers the choice of acceptance in each moment as I strive to do the best I can. May I be happy. May I know peace. May I be free from all harm and suffering.
My story about forgiving myself. Forgiving myself for constantly being hard on myself. Being hard on myself, thinking that I have to work physically hard to earn money. Thinking that if you don't work physically hard, whether it's around the house, at work, activities and social situations, that you're not good enough. It would always make me feel like I'm not a winner, or I didn't accomplish or achieve anything, like a goal or a certain standard. It turns out that usually any job, activity, whether work or leisure related, I had to be an overachiever. Now here I am, with an injured back and a wounded soul, all because I gave myself for other people, situations, companies, societal expectations, and social situations that I put on a pedestal. And in all reality, those situations, people, places are all long gone, and they don't even matter. So here at 40 years old, almost 40 years old, with minor physical limitations, those people, those companies, those bosses, and those social situations and friends are not even around. And the only things to prove for it are an education and lessons. Lessons for my soul. Lessons for my soul to learn that loving yourself first and putting boundaries in all areas of your life are what matters for you. Some things that I can usually say to myself to help forgive myself. I forgive you, and I set myself free. I release this gladly, and I am forgiven.
I woke up this morning with pain in my lower back. It's a familiar spot that I haven't felt in years. I'm worried that my massage yesterday unraveled the structure that has been holding it all together. Regret. That's the word that pops into my head. What is my biggest regret? Cheating on Bob with his best friend. I have no regrets about ending the relationship. In my heart, I knew that it was time. I was bored, curious about other experiences and other guys. It made no sense that I would be married to the boy I met when I was 16. I've never regretted that decision. It's everything else. It's not ending the relationship before starting others. I regret cheating on him. I regret cheating on him with his best friend. I regret that I hurt him. And most of all, I regret that I lacked the wisdom, inner strength, and kindness to act with loving kindness to him and to myself. I regret my inability to stand up for myself and speak my truth. I regret my inability to say no when I meant no. In the early days with Greg, I was aroused. I didn't realize he was a wolf. And had it been separate from my relationship with Bob, it would have been fine. However, he came sniffing around for years, long after he'd been married. I knew I was one of many women in many ports. I didn't want to have sex with him. I couldn't say no. I didn't say no for many years. When I finally did, he stopped calling. So much for the pretense of friendship. I forgive myself for hurting someone who loved me so deeply. I forgive myself for lacking the strength of character to say no. I forgive myself for not having a voice. I forgive myself for cheating on Bob. I forgive myself for being less than loving and kind. I forgive myself for disrespecting myself and my body. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. With the loving kindness I now have, I release this memory and I forgive myself.
Forgiveness. I have always been the forgiven one. I have always felt like I've been at the mercy of others. And because of that, I feel like I have no place to withhold forgiveness. At the same time, I wonder if what I'm even doing is forgiveness. I'm not even sure what it looks like, but I do know that in my past, I have fucked up a lot. I have been at the mercy of others, and I have betrayed many people, including myself. I've been the last one to forgive myself. I know others have forgiven me because I've changed my life and my lifestyle. They know that under certain circumstances, I can't be trusted, which is fine. When I'm using drugs or abusing alcohol, they can't trust me, and that's fair. So now that I don't, I'm trustworthy. And sometimes I get that confused with forgiven, because there's love in my family. During that time that I betrayed them, I realized it wasn't unconditional. And I understand that because I was horrible. I lied, I took advantage and manipulated people. So, of course, they couldn't trust me. And I was so self-destructive that I couldn't really trust myself. And knowing what I'm possible of and how I've abandoned myself in the past and how easy that is to do, I'm still working on trusting myself.
I have a brother who passed away when he was 6 years old and I was 9. He died from choking on a toy. I wasn't there. I blame myself. I should say blamed, because I was a kid that thought that maybe if I was there, I could have saved him. But I still say blame. I thought, as a kid, maybe he would have been doing something else, playing with me. But I was selfish and I was having fun at camp when I could have been with him when he died, or saved him from dying. As an adult, I should know better. And I do know that it wasn't my fault, that it was an accident. However, I still carry guilt. Guilt of not being there, guilt of not saving him, guilt of having fun while he choked to death. I was just a child. I didn't know that it would happen. No one did. I couldn't have saved him, and under the circumstances, no one could have. I'm still working on this forgiveness. As an adult, seeing that little girl as the child she was, the child who just wanted to play and be a kid, not knowing what was to come, I forgive her. But I don't think she still forgives herself. We are working on it. I think it will take a while. I hope that in this forgiveness that she gives herself, we will find love for ourselves. And we will be open to have the childhood that was lost, to be free to play and enjoy life as an adult. I release this gladly. I am forgiven.
I grew up in a household of conflict. My parents fought about everything, so much that I don't remember a time where they weren't fighting. Eventually, they got divorced, and I was really sad, but I was so relieved because I wanted the fighting to stop. Peace, finally, I thought. I was 13 years old, I think. My mom and dad had worked out an arrangement that every other weekend we'd hang out with my dad. I enjoyed these weekends, as they usually involved hanging out somewhere, and they always put a smile on my dad's face. We charged his batteries, he'd say, and now, as a father of 2, I can completely relate. But even divorced, the fighting continued to escalate, and to new levels. At the end of each visit, my sister and I would get a barrage of questions Like, where'd you guys go? What did you eat? Who were you with? Did you go anywhere else? Was your dad talking to anybody? What did they look like? And usually ends with, did you have a good time? Later, I learned that the answers to all of our questions would be used against my dad. My mom was building up an arsenal. Each answer was a bullet that she stored up to use at a later date against my father. And if we said yes, that we had a good time, that means we were in trouble with my mom. She made us feel terrible about spending time with my father. She made us feel, after these visits, so bad that eventually I learned I didn't want to say anything. I wouldn't answer any of her questions, and I wouldn't contribute to the conversation. This made my mom really angry, as she thought I was hiding information from her, and I was on my dad's side. Eventually, I saw the solution to the problem was to just avoid the visitation weekends altogether. So I stopped seeing my dad. This really hurt me, and it really hurt him. But selfishly, I could live in my mom's house without any fighting. But the impact of that decision I made when I was a 14-year-old has done so much damage to my family dynamic. Generations of family have been affected. My mom, my sister, my grandparents, all of our relationships have been strained. And even my dad died with this unresolved. Forgiving myself for the decision I made when I was a 14-year-old boy hasn't been easy, and I think about it every day. I often wonder how different life would be for my family and I if I would have just handled things differently. And sharing this has been hard, but it's helped me forgive myself. I'm unable to change the past, but I don't feel like I have to live with this any longer. So keep the people you love close, even when it's really hard to do so. Thank you for listening.
I never wanted to forgive myself. When I was 8 years old, I killed a kitten. It wasn't an accident. I believed when I did it that it was a mercy, but I knew it was wrong. I never wanted to forgive myself. I kept the images of my actions with me every day of my life, and I suffocated myself with torment and self-hatred and despair. Many times over many years, clinical social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists explained why I had done what I had done, and though their explanations gave me moments of comfort, I never wanted to forgive myself. Oddly, my cruelty of non-forgiveness did not exist with others. I have been stolen from, lied to, belittled, and raped, yet I never believed anyone needed forgiveness. In a couple of instances, I was very angry, but to think my saying, "I forgive you," would provide solace to someone seemed pompous. In other instances, I never felt anything but love and empathy for the person who had done a supposed wrong toward me. People do what they do. People do the best that they can. They belong only to themselves, and if they think they have done something immoral or illegal or simply unsavory, how can anyone but themselves make it right for them? Alongside the therapists, others told me I was a good person, that I'd been traumatized in the home, and my 8-year-old self reacted in a horrible, but not to be an unexpected way. One person asked me when I was 62, "You've been punishing yourself for 54 years. Isn't that enough?" I never wanted to forgive myself, and then I did. I came to understand that what was keeping me from opening up my arms to life, preventing me from resting in any moment, was that I had not allowed myself ever to be free of the belief that I was bad. So I decided to witness, without looking away, every painful moment of what I had done. I was submerged in revulsion until my compassion and decency had had enough, and they released me from a life of self-banishment. I forgave myself. And in forgiving myself, the world became more gentle, more kind, and more honest. I have no regrets today. That is what forgiveness means to me.